going strong. They're branched out into audiobooks now, which is kind of cool.
You're familiar with these hardcore horror authors like Matt Shaw and Tim Miller, maybe, and John A.
Is he the one that recently had the other big spill with Brian Keene?
No.
I mean, there's always
Tim Miller.
Spill. Yeah, Tim
Yeah,
Miller.
this is not.
Happened? He was sending videos of himself masturbating to random women.
Yeah. That's how you build your fan base. I'm just saying. You know, that's, nothing says read my books like a personal.
And this wasn't like this isn't like just an accusation. I saw the screenshots, which I didn't, but they're out there.
Well, no, that wasn't even what I was going to bring up in relation to this. There is a type of horror author right now, that is. It's catching on and multiplying this sensation, and maybe you've seen this too, Phoenix. These horror authors who have to subtitle their books an extreme horror novel.
I've seen that.
I'm talking about Matt Shaw, who wrote
the Backer dude's the one that gets on my nerves the most.
Matt Shaw, Tim Miller, John Athan, and
who's the Backer one?
I don't know. Wade Garrett?
Yes.
Yeah. But what?
He might not be a backer.
Who here has read Octopus by Matt Shaw?
I don't know. I read a porn and I fucking hated that.
I haven't read that one. I've read a few of his books, though. They're not terrible. But I haven't read Octopus yet. I've heard about it, but I haven't read it.
Yeah, porn is terrible.
Hillary, because Hillary's like even though I've not read that much extreme horror, like I still see that as being like the definitive, like you can't go above that line.
Here's what he's talking about, and we brought it up on here before, but this book is so extreme that I honestly think it went too far. And here's what he's talking about. Let me bring it up here. And
it's got a horrible cover. I'm just going to warn you.
Yes, this book is one of the few that I think should not exist.
I'm completely fine with that book not existing. I mean, it was a fun thrill ride, but I cannot say that it added anything to my life.
Yeah.
And I can honestly say my life might be better had I not read it. Like I truly believe that.
There are horror stories that go really taboo and go into some really dark directions that I do feel have enhanced my life. This is not one of them. There is okay, I can watch Melancholy Durango or Cannibal Holocaust, and I can at least pat myself on the back for the endurance. I can't even do that with this because, it's like I don't feel proud for enduring this like I did those. But look, the point is there is a whole underground of these types of novels that have to be identified as extreme horror now, right? They're like badges of honor with the more hardcore set of readers. Octopus, when I read it, it made me squirm so bad that I didn't know whether to stand or sit down. I could just imagine if I were a woman and that were being done to me, how horrible it would feel, as it was even burrowing up into my heart. I could picture it.
It can't be worse than the dang coat hanger part of Hillary.
So I feel like...
No, go ahead.
Ben first and then Mike.
No, I don't really have anything to add.
Phoenix, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say I've actually thought a lot about that question because I've read some books, as an example, Dahlgren or The Talisman, and they're books that I generally admire for their kind of complexity and beautiful language and the story. And I realized that some of the parts that I didn't like in those books or don't like, because I'm still reading Dahlgren, like I can almost accept it even though I don't like it. But I've thought a lot about this idea of like what is acceptable and what's not acceptable. And I think I have an extra squeamishness for things that feel nihilistic, things that just depict things with no underlying purpose. And at least with some books I've read that are like that, you feel like there's at least some degree of purpose, even in like horror. But I haven't read extreme horror, but I would assume that a lot of the stuff in that genre is probably like that, where it's nihilistic and it doesn't really have any redeeming value of like existing, I guess, which might be harsh to say, but it's like there's no reason why this makes your life better. In fact, it may actually make it worse.
There, it's just pure
What was
debauchery.
It's talking about Hillary. It really is that mean.
No, I'm talking about the genre as a whole.
No,
yeah, that's what I was wondering, because I'm trying to figure out, like, I personally like want to be open-minded to a lot of different things, but at least when it comes to something like extreme horror, I'm much more skeptical of whether or not it even has any value. And that's hard for me to say when I believe in free speech. I believe in writing basically whatever you want. But if there's no like morality at all to what you're doing, even just like the thought of it just like freaks me out. I'm like, not going to lie. I mean, the world is already dark enough as it is, and to kind of delve into these kinds of things, even with a respectable medium like books, I just don't think I could ever do.
Yeah,
So, and I think it really challenges. I was just going to say in that it really challenges like what's acceptable and like what we can personally engage with, and even what's worth writing and like what's not worth writing.
Yeah, like I'm okay with free speech and having it be out there, but that doesn't mean it's good. Like, okay, Wrath James White's the best example. I don't believe someone like him is writing a story, or like the stories he does, for anything other than to legitimately get off on it, because he has a very dark, deviant, like sexual mind. And you can kind of say free speech and like, oh yeah, we need to have this stuff out there. All he's doing is like, and writers like that, all they're doing is indulging in like this freaking.
Dude, Wrath James White is having no problem getting laid with normal women, though. I can guarantee.
No, I ain't saying anything about that. I'm saying that that's still part of him. Like, he likes. I mean, I don't have to repeat that. You get what I'm saying. I'm not saying he has a problem having sex with normal women.
What the fuck is that noise?
I think that's Mike's background.
I don't know. I don't know anything going on.
Okay, maybe it's Phoenix's background noise. Is that it?
No,
that type of fiction, all it is indulgence and depravity, and it is. I believe it is harmful for individuals. It's not a good thing that needs to be in the world. There's nothing to be learned from it. It's just
okay. As I'm laying all these books out as examples of things that negatively influenced me, like Octopus and Hillary, I'm not as quick to turn on, say, an Edward Lee novel. Why is that?
You see, the weird thing about Edward Lee, like, it's going to sound freaking hypocritical coming from me. It's not the depraved stuff that turns me off on his fiction. It's actually the good stuff. Like, it seems like it's such a generic story mixed in with these things. And like, I just can't get into it. I've tried.
No, but the point is, I don't feel this revulsion to Edward Lee extreme horror like I do Octopus by Matt Shaw and Hillary by Angel Jaliek. Is it because of the camp factor that it lessens the blow?
I think part of that too with Edward Lee, I was going to point out too that when I first started reading it, it was called Splatterpunk, which was like early '80s, Clive Barker, all these other dudes. But I think for like with Edward Lee, there's a story behind it and it fits into the story, whereas a lot of newer extreme horror is just about the violence and there's very little story. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why anybody would read that, because I feel like part of the reason why we would read at all is for the story. It's not just to read a bunch of scenes pasted together to like fulfill some kind of thing. And I hesitate being so critical, especially when I haven't engaged, but I just feel like probably like I've spent a lot of time thinking about what I myself don't find acceptable. And I know that that's different for everybody, but at least for me, like I generally have to trust that instinct of like, I'm not going to engage with this. And I know that like free speech types would probably hate that. And I'm not advocating censoring it, but I'm just saying like, I think there are some books that bring value and then there are others that don't.
I am a huge fan of the Human Centipede movies.
No, I love the first one.
My favorite is actually the second one. But I feel
really
like
didn't like that one.
I love the second one.
The two sequels feel like Tom Six jerking himself off.
Right, it's great. But, no, but I think that I can live with Human Centipede because of you have to laugh at the idea of someone's mouth being sewn to someone's ass. But then I get
Yeah.
to something like this that I just read, the Lockdown Trade-Off, where this poor woman is basically sold to this crazy guy in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic, right? The bars fail, their bars failing, they're heavy in debt, and he catches her cheating on him with her a side boyfriend, and so he just basically sells her and the boyfriend to this crazy guy, and he proceeds to do these basement surgeries on these two poor people who, yes, they committed adultery, but they go through absolute pure torture at this madman's hands. I thought that I could at least experience it on a campy, like midnight movie type, bargain bin paperback level. But no, it really made me just feel horrible. The descriptions of how they get hypodermic needles jammed in their necks, and then they wake up and they don't know what's happened, but they can tell that their bodies are fundamentally changed. It's just cruel without necessity. It's needlessly cruel.
Yeah,
now, because it was written so well, as I said in the review, I had to give Sam West. I had to render unto Caesar what was Caesar's and give Sam West a 4-star review. But I never went to read it again, and it really bummed me out. Stephen King once said that he thought Stanley Kubrick wanted to hurt people with his movies. And I think that in a lot of cases, we can say the same about authors such as Matt Shaw, Sam West, Rath James White, and the other one, Angel Jalik. I think that they want to legitimately hurt people. Obviously, I don't think that that's like a crime, and it may not even be a sin, but I do feel like there's a certain sadism, and that they do, if they're honest with themselves, they probably do get off on this idea and all this horrible stuff being purely in a fictional space where they don't have to pay any consequences. It remains in their mind, and they don't have to worry about cleaning anything up. I think that there may be an element of getting off on it, and maybe it's catharsis for them too to do it this way. And so it's definitely better than carrying these thoughts out in real life. But I think if they were honest, I don't think that we've all heard the expression, I want to hold a mirror up to the darkness in society. I've always thought that was bullshit. And that
sounds like someone screaming in the background.
Okay, but you can still hear me despite the screaming.
It's appropriate background noise for what you're talking about.
You have screaming? I don't even hear screaming. That is weird.
Yeah.
Let me test something.
Yeah, it was. It's your children's slaves in the background screaming, Jeremy. The ones you bought off Wayfair.
But you guys heard everything I said, right?
Yeah.
I think.
I mean, your Wayfair delivery in the background and drowned it out.
Okay, but I think that it's bullshit when they say I want to hold up a mirror to the darkness in society. No, you thought these thoughts and you thought they'd be cool, and maybe you imagined a girlfriend who hurt you at some point. You imagined her in that situation, and hey, as long as it's just in your mind, I mean, I think that's okay. But I do think that there is a certain level that these authors want to take readers to. They want them to have a bad afternoon.
Like, I'm the bad guy who makes fun of people who die in plane crashes and laughs as long as that ain't happening to him.
Right.
So, guys, I'm going to say don't read this. Even if you're
I'm going to read it.
Even
you don't fucking control me. I'm going to read it.
Okay. I hope you don't. Even
I'm going to masturbate to it.
There you go.
Dude,
random videos.
Dude, I couldn't even masturbate to it. It can't be masturbated to. Trust me. It's
Oh,
just
I've had some very unproud faps.
me too, but not this.
There was a lot of things in the plexiglass there.
What is that background noise?
Mike, did someone in the background say something about plexiglass?
Oh, yeah, they're watching the pay-per-view.
A pay-per-view?
Yeah, the Extreme Rules.
Oh, who's wrestling?
Oh, I don't know. I'm in my office. I haven't watched WWE since AEW started, so I couldn't tell you.
Well, I mean, tell me what's going on, dude. You're right there at the TV, right?
No, I'm actually in my office.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's what the screaming was. Are you sure they're not playing snuff films in the office?
No, I don't think there's nobody. I don't know where the screaming came from. I didn't even hear it. That's the crazy part.
Am I hearing things again? Are the demons back?
It's all the Extreme Horror Talk. That's what did it.
Yeah.
Now, I will say Survivor by J.F. Gonzalez did have some redeeming qualities. I will say that I do have a thing against going to that extreme, although this one did have, good trying to rise. There's still that weird thing with indulgence that I've found. It's like I'm not against having things in fiction, but there comes a point when basically people are just trying to one up each other these days because everything's been done. I don't think there's a way to really get into that and write something like that, put the time and energy involved into coming up with that without indulging in some kind of really weird, freaky way. And that probably sounds preachy. I mean, I've done it too because some of my older stuff was pretty bad. But I don't know. I think there needs to be a setback. It's everyone's obsessed with one-upping, and now that Bizarro and Extreme Horror have kind of died with that last thing with Chandler Morrison, I wonder if people even care about what's extreme these days, because Chandler Morrison definitely took the extreme people to their freaking level and destroyed a freaking genre. So
he pushed their shit in. Yeah. But
I was just saying, when I wrote Extreme Horror, it wasn't there's a lot of weird stuff that's going on now. I never went to that level with octopuses or things like that. It was just kind of my style was more layman, Clive Barker, that kind of thing. That was the influence for me. I don't know what happened.
We've all heard
the thing with Extreme Horror, just in general. It has nothing to do with the content. It's just it's a very mixed bag. Monica J. O'Rourke's what was that called? About the torture fat camp thing. What's
Cannibal
that called?
Fat Camp? No,
that was David Hayes. It was Suffer the Flesh. Yeah, that just wasn't a good book. It just wasn't good. It had nothing to do with the contents. It was just poorly written.
You know what? I think
the plot was stupid.
I think that anytime you're dealing in a book with a character, a killer, who always has a hypodermic needle on standby, and they've taken every precaution, and they've got all this high-tech equipment, they've got a camera in every corner. It's just it's Deus Ex Machina inverted. It's reverse Deus Ex Machina. We've all heard
Ex Machina.
Yeah, we've all heard that phrase where, the godlike figure comes and saves the day without the main character having to lift a finger. He's just conveniently, everything's put back to normal by the god character, and they didn't have to work for any of it, It's almost like that reversed only for the villain,
That's one of the reasons I really didn't like the movie, the Poughkeepsie Tapes.
yeah, I hated that movie.
I don't know if I hated it. There were some cool scenes in it, but in general, what they did with the killer was it made no sense. They basically made him this super awesome fucking serial killer, and it's just this is not how serial killers act. They don't just randomly do this kind of serial killers by definition are creatures of habit. But
that was the point, is that as the agent said,
the point was stupid.
No, but the point was that the agent said early on, this is a guy who's learning that he's good at something. and
which
he
is
knew
what
how
sucks
to,
about it.
he knew how to throw people off the scent. That was the whole point. He knew
Yeah,
how,
Which is
why would
what's
you wanna watch
stupid
that?
about it.
no, but he knew how to change up his game. The Poughkeepsie tapes is not mindless
Which
torture
is-
porn, though.
It is.
It tries
No,
not
it's
to be, but it ends up being.
I disagree no, Poughkeepsie tapes treads on that fine line, but no, it is there is a point to it. Okay, there are points in there that are very,
he framed another guy, and then he
a cop
you
who
know,
looks like them. Yes,
he framed a policeman, and then nobody saw the exoneration because 9/11 happened.
that was an awesome twist to me.
And then it
So
turns out he's
stupid.
like the freaking predator and can turn invisible.
No,
Not quite. No, but it's like he keeps a sex slave. He kills children. He kills men. He kills women. He goes back to.
He learned to change up his game to be,
Which it makes no fucking sense. Like I said, serial killers by definition are creatures of habit. If they were going to go that route, he should have slipped up at some point.
That's why they always get caught. If they took notes from the Poughkeepsie tape guy, the Water Street Butcher, then they would be free. And not that we want.
That's the best message to put out into the world.
Yeah, that's a great message, Jeremy.
That's the thing. It
That is
doesn't.
the freaking redeeming quality of this
That's-
movie. Nothing.
But it's
That's
the
a joke.
if there
I
was
know
like
it's a
any
joke,
kind of
but I'm making a point. What's the redeem? Like, there's nothing to be gleaned from this. It's just freaking.
like I don't care about moral messages, but it like story wise, it doesn't make sense. It's like, oh, this guy's a super awesome serial killer. Now watch him, do all this shit. Well, why am I supposed to give a shit?
Because when it plays in theaters, the feds are going to be watching real close to see if he's there.
Okay, here's a question.
It's a
for
fictional
everyone.
It's a fiction.
Poughkeepsie tapes versus the collection.
It was a documentary, and the events happened in real time.
Poughkeepsie tapes versus the collection, and why?
Poughkeepsie tapes is way more.
No,
The collection, I haven't
No.
seen that.
Collection is exactly what I'm talking about, with all the hypodermic needles and super elaborate mechanical traps at the ready all the time. Bullshit.
Yes, but they're like overcoming him. I'm not saying it's a good movie, but I'm saying it's like something. There's more of like an actual story to it, instead of this pointless kind of like just constant torture and constant playing with the audience.
Collection ripped off Saw. Poughkeepsie
They
tapes.
were made by the same people and were supposed to be a freaking prequel, but they changed it at the last minute. So I mean, yeah, it technically did rip off Saw, but that was the point from the get-go.
We're not going to agree on this, but no, I think we've gotten. I think we went with this where I needed us to go to better understand. And
I'm ready for the multiverse.
But Suffer the Flesh is not good,
right,
and neither is Matt Shaw's Porn. That one is terrible.
And neither
it's not because of the content; it's because the story sucks.
And
I'm going to spoil the ending. The ending is basically just, "Ooh, it was all a dream." Fuck off! You wasted
which one? Which one's a dream?
Porn. Matt Shaw's Porn.
No, Octopus was not a dream. It really.
No, I'm talking about porn. I'm talking about porn.
What porn?
Matt Shaw's book, Porn.
Oh, it's actually
just called Porn.
Okay, gotcha.
Because the main character is a porn actress. So, there's snuff films. Ooh.
Okay, but seriously.
The porn director is actually a snuff film director. Ooga booga booga.
I gotta get this out.
Ooga booga booga.
I gotta get this out. I gotta get this out. Okay. Some of you out there listening may be curious, since I talked up the lockdown trade-off by Sam West, but don't fill your head with it. It's needlessly cruel. And don't read Hillary.
You don't heckin' control me.
Okay.
You don't fucking control me.
Okay.
Do what I want, Dad.
I said the same thing before I read those books, and I wish I had listened now.
No, I gotta fucking read it. It was all your fault.
There were people warning me not to read Octopus, and I didn't heed their warning.
That's what happened.
If it really is as bad as you say it is, I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to come on here and berate you for making me read them.
Right, because you told us not to read it, so now we got to read it.
But I'm probably not
your
going to
fault.
Yeah,
but I'm not going to read the Matt Shaw one. Porn pissed me off so much that I'm not going to touch him for a long time.
Matt Shaw for a long time had covers that were just words saying, "Warning, this is an extreme thing," right?
Right. That doesn't bother me. That doesn't really bother me.
It does bother me.
Damn it, Ben!
It doesn't bother me, but it's just that write something that doesn't suck.
Damn it,
I
Ben!
would be embarrassed having those covers.
I mean, yeah, it's pretty gimmicky, with the whole warning. Ooh, I'm so fucking scary. Ooh, this book is called. It's called porn. It's so extreme. It's so out there. Ooh, snuff films. Oogie boogie boogie.
A great Spider-Punk novel would be my book Legacy too, which is it has some violence in it, but there's a reason behind it. Yeah, I have a Spider-Punk novel.
That one
called Legacy 2, which is actually violent, but there's a reason behind it. There it is. Yeah, that one and then the sequel is actually better.
I've heard people say that Elaine has some gruesome violence in it, but I don't know if I'd count it as extreme horror, even if there is a lot of sex in it.
It had a gunshot, I think.
okay. Here's some
No, I mean the beginning is pretty gruesome.
here's some shameless self-promotion. Angel Jalique, whatever her name was, who wrote Hillary, apparently seriously liked Hospitalized Factory of Pain, which is my out-of-print horror novel.
Mm.
We should try to get her on the show.
I tried. There was a person on Facebook, and I messaged them asking if they were the same Angel Jalique who wrote Hillary, and they freaking blocked me.
Oh,
Maybe they're tired of hearing it.
That would be a no, then, I guess.
Or maybe it was her, but she
was just like, no, I didn't write that.
I want to know what's wrong with her to write something like that. I mean, it takes a lot for me to have this visceral reaction.
God.
Is Phoenix still with us? Okay, great.
I am. Yeah.
The freaking coat hanger that still sticks in my mind, and it's horrible. I
I don't want to think about it. I don't want to think about it. I wish I had not gone there.
It's funny. There's can be things with their, show don't tell that really works. Like I remember there's a scene from American Psycho that just when Patrick Bateman is sleeping with the two prostitutes, it just mentions that he pulls out a pair of coat hangers, and then it just cuts to them leaving very angrily.
that is a great movie.
And
the book's
it just
even better.
Yeah, the book's pretty great. Yeah, that has some pretty gruesome scenes, like the one part where he starves a rat and has it eat through a prostitute.
There were a couple. So I've wanted to read American Psycho because of its influence, but I haven't been able to. And there's also another writer I think who's fairly influential, Dennis Cooper. And reading some of the Goodreads reviews, I was just like, I can't do this.
Marbled Swarm was great. I've been reading Frisk on and off for a while, and honestly, I don't. It's boring to me. It's
Really?
just.
Yeah.
I've heard people say that The Sluts is his best book. I have a copy of that.
So, but it sounds like all of you actually stomach this stuff pretty well.
Yeah.
Overall,
That's something. That's something else. As I get older, I find it less and less fun.
But the only thing I can think of that that actually nauseated me reading it was Edward Lee's The Rapidophilist.
Do you think it's because it's the form, it's the medium of words? Actually, maybe I should be careful saying that because
there's
there's
stuff that I've read that affected me on a psychological level, like Hubert Selby Jr.'s The Room, or Let's Go Play at the Adamses. Those just kind of really affected me on a deep psychological level. But as far as stuff that just affect me on this is really fucking disgusting, I can only think of a few things that did that. And funny enough, one of the things I can think of that I read that disgusted me the most was in a Thomas Ligotti story. It was in the story Purity, and it wasn't any of the violence in it. It was a part where he mentions that a character in it who's a homeless drug dealer, where she takes a cold hot dog, dips it in mayonnaise, and eats it that way. And I remember just the way he described it nearly made me want to throw up.
Yeah,
I'd go for a hot dog right now.
Mayonnaise on a hot dog, yeah, absolutely.
On a cold hot dog.
There's nothing good about that.
I just read that. I was like, oh God, why?
So you're.
Yeah, I got the same action from I read Edward Lee's The House and the Pig, and the drinking was the goat jizz. I was like, okay, I'm done. I muscled through, dude, but I'm like, oh, that's just nasty. It's the first time I've ever read a book and almost threw up. I was like, that is just. I wasn't expecting that.
That opens with the character eating animal cum, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like that.
Yeah, I actually was listening to like clips from the Joe Rogan show, and they talked about how the episode that killed Fear Factor was the one where they were having the contestants drinking donkey jizz.
That is disturbing.
Yeah, he was just talking about how I encourage us girls to drink donkey jizz.
Oh, is that the one where they were said that some of the women would be okay with it, like that, as opposed to something else?
Oh yeah, apparently they had a choice between horse piss and donkey jizz, and all of the girls went for the donkey jizz.
Oh yeah. I have to read these spiders, like it's either spiders or donkey jizz.
What's real? I'm asking Ben.
No, it was real. It was real donkey jizz. Like Joe Rogan even described how they got all the jizz out of the donkey.
Good.
How they had to like stick a cattle prod up its ass to stimulate its prostate to make it just cum buckets.
Is that
that's always how they get cum from like horses and donkeys. Like I don't know if you've read the.
I wish I didn't know that.
I did too.
Have you ever read the book version of what's the sequel to Silence of the Lambs? What's that called?
Hannibal?
No, Hannibal is like the
Red Dragon
prequel.
Red Dragon.
No, it was with the guy in the wheelchair who had the fucked up face.
That was Hannibal, wasn't it?
I don't think so.
Hannibal.
Yeah, they go Hannibal.
You're thinking Hannibal Rises is the prequel. Hannibal.
Oh, I'm thinking of the TV show.
His name is Mason Verger.
Yeah, Mason Verger. In the book version of that, like the assistant, instead of an assistant, it's his sister, who is a lesbian, and that she's only nice to Mason Verger, despite the fact that he had raped her several times because he needed to get his semen in order to impregnate her girlfriend in order to inherit his money. And when she finally gets tired of his shit, when Hannibal basically says, you could just kill him and blame it on me. Like the way she kills him is she sticks a cattle prod up his ass to get his semen, and then she shoves a piranha down his throat.
That's effective.
So real quick, I did want to go over what else I read this week, and anybody else who wants to take a go at that is welcome to. This is the first Eraserhead Press book that I've finished in several years, and they may be on a slight roll again, here lately, but I still think their personalities, they need to work on their social media acumen or whatever.
Dude, he wrote that to troll you.
Which
Stanley
one?
Maddox.
I highly doubt that.
Maddox. I mean, how many times do you see that name?
Look, it's not even how you spell my name, though.
Maddox is a pretty common name.
Yeah, there are other people named Maddox. Yeah, in this world.
I mean, there's